Brought to you by our Kings.
Hey, Pauli, do you know who the secretary of his club is? Do you ever remember Alan Lynch? He was the secretary of Merseyside ABA when you boxed in Liverpool.
No, I would love to see him though. Shit. A lot of those guys are dead. The guy from that trip from the fuck is fucked up, bro. That was a 1998 amateur trip.
Yeah, he's the secretary of this club. He's like 80 now.
Yeah, I would love to meet some of the guys from there.
Alan Lynch, yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun trip.
Yeah.
I lost my first fight, the Cutman's boy in Ireland. I fought in Ireland. I lost my first amateur loss I ever took was a kid named Aaron Dempsey. Didn't have a name. And then the next week.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. I was my first amateur loss. I can't lose again. Fuck, man. Because I lost mainly. Aaron, bless him, he wasn't that good, you know. But I only had 4 fights, so I wasn't that good yet either. But I was pretty good when I put my head to it. So I remember the next week, like, fuck, I can't go home with 2 losses. My fucking grandfather will kill me. You know what I'm saying? And it was also the fight in Liverpool the next week. We fought in Liverpool, and the next week that's when I met my father the first time in 12 years. My father came to find me. You know what I mean? He'd call my mom. My mom, he was just trying to get back in touch with us, and he was talking to my brother, but I wasn't speaking to him. And he asked my mother where I am, and my mother's like, he's out in Liverpool on a boxing trip. And he's like, where is he? Hotel. He gets all the information. He shows up unannounced, fucking meets me. I have no fucking idea it's even him. When I talk to him, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? It is because he looks different. You know, he lost his hair and all this shit.
You good relationship with him now?
Yeah, now we've been good and cool ever since. Even Glover met him.
Yeah,
So yeah, we're more like friends than father son because we miss that key part of the thing. But he's a laugh. So I was like, I really can't lose. And they get this guy. The guy that I'm supposed to fight doesn't make weight, doesn't show up. Doesn't show up. They can't find him. They got to fight me with a 139-pounder. I made this trip at 132 even though I was a 125-pounder. So I was already fighting above my weight in Ireland to begin with. Now I got to fight a 139-pounder who is a 63.5 kilo. I'm a 57 kilo. So I was like, fuck, man. I was like, I can't not fight because I can't go home with just one fight and a loss because my grandfather will kill me again. So I can't lose to this guy. Otherwise, I go home with 2 losses. My grandfather will kill me. So I had to fight this guy and I fucking boxed his shoes off me. Nah, Burke beat me in London. That was USA England. That was USA England. That was 2000. That was 2 years later. That was the USA team. This was just a New York versus Dublin, New York versus Liverpool shit. You know, it was a small thing, but it was fun. It was very fun. And yeah, I beat this kid. I think his name was Millet, JJ or Jason Millet. I mean, probably kid is a boxing. Anyway, he was 2 weights above me, and I boxed his fucking shoes off, and I beat him. I was like, thank God I fucking won.
Your granddad gonna be happy.
But I remember in Dublin they put us in a homeless shelter that week. They put us in we had bunk beds, literally a homeless shelter. Fucking treated us like shit. In Liverpool we got 5-star hotel. Fucking unbelievable experience, bro. You know that, Daniel Judah. So in the hotel that week, fucking randomly walking his boy George in the lobby. The long hair boy George at the time. And women are like, and I'm like, is this guy gay? And it was like old school. It was old school England, man. It was like really cool. Not like fucked up England now, you know what I mean? It was like really old school England, you know what I mean? No, it was fucking old school England, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, I was like, holy shit, this is wild. For a 17-year-old kid, like, this is wild, you know? This is 5-star hotel. And I remember the day I got there, the football, because football's my first sport, you know, I love football. Chelsea were playing Liverpool at Anfield. So it was down the street. And it ended 1-1 and Casaraghi scored for Chelsea. And Casaraghi was obviously an Italian, so I knew who he was. I was like, fuck, man. They got the game. At the time, the game was in the hotel room. You didn't need 75 apps. You could fucking see the game. And the stadium was down the street. You could see the game. I was mad experience.
What time?
It was October 1998. October 1998. It was Liverpool, Chelsea won. Liverpool, Chelsea won. Chelsea had just won They won the Cup Winners' Cup or the FA?
FA Cup.
And they won the Cup Winners' Cup that season? It was that the season they won the Cup Winners' Cup with Vialli?
Gianluca Vialli.
They won it that year because they won the Cup.
Yeah, the FA Cup the year before, yeah. Yeah.
Was Roberto Di Matteo scored the fastest goal.
Yeah, that was Chelsea was grabbing some Italians at the time. Zola, right?
That Italian.
Yeah, that was when, because that was post-Bosman. See, post-Bosman, once Bosman rule happened, guys started traveling, you know? So the first Italians started moving. They went to Chelsea. Chelsea had like an Italian thing going with Di Matteo.
When they had Zola.
Yeah, Zola, Di Matteo. Casaraghi went over there. Yeah.
The football got sexy, actually.
Right then and there. If they would just stop right then and there, then it just got too crazy. You know what I mean? Even in Italy, I know that, you know, there's a funny trivia question. The first transfer post-Bosman rule. Edgar Davids to AC Milan.
Was it,
Yeah, I mean, got transferred before that, but it was a first post-Bosman transfer. So with the transfer,
With the new
you can
system,
use
of course.
one of the new rules. Davids only lasted 1 year at Milan. He didn't really like it
He
there.
played at Juve, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he went to Juve and he was a star. Same thing with Kluivert. Kluivert at Milan didn't really translate, but because the Dutch Milan liked their Dutch guys because they had the three phenoms in the late '80s. So they tried it again in the '90s, but it didn't work.
Who's your team?
I grew up as a Juve fan. My father bought me a kit when I was like 5 years old. We lived in Italy. And I loved Juve growing up because of that. But when I won a world championship in 2007, Milan invited me to Milanello for a week. Stayed there for the whole week. And Milan had just won the Champions League.
Yeah, they did.
When they beat Liverpool.
I know.
And that was 5 months later. It was later that year in the next season. And I remember I stayed there for a whole week. Got to see everybody. I got to stay on the campus, bro.
Like
it was
Kaka,
insane.
So what's it about? It's about raw conversations.
You've not been on camera for a while, so I thought I'd just try and distract you.
You just the whole intro.
That was roll, baby.
It's about the big names. It's about behind the scenes.
They won the Cup Winners' Cup at the FA.
It's about fight night reaction. It's about the breaking news. It's about boxing. Welcome to About Boxing, proudly brought to you by Our Kings Competitions. And what a way to kick it off. We're being joined by former two-weight world champion in Paulie Malignaggi. He fights next week for another world title in a different combat field, BKB. Paulie, the Magic Man, is back. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Mate. Appreciate you, man.
Where to begin? So, just tell me, why are we here? Why at this stage in your life, when you've achieved what you've achieved, under the circumstances which you achieved them in the professional boxing game, are we now in BKB and striving to become world champion?
You know what? It's a hard question to answer just with one reason. You know, a lot of times there's multifaceted reasons. There's, a lot of things are involved as far as the decision-making process and something like this. I know people right away jump the gun and say, oh, he needs money, this and that. And of course, listen, unless they pay you well, you won't return for anything, right? I mean, typically unless you're really desperate, of course. But, you know, BKB was first and foremost an opportunity for me to probably compete at world championship level in a combat sport where, as in boxing, I probably couldn't at this age, you know? I'd love to say I could, but you know, realistically, it would be very difficult to compete for a world championship in boxing. BKB is still in its early stages. It's rising up the ranks. It's gaining popularity, and they are looking for guys like myself who have a name in other combat sports to come over and try their hand at BKB. So, you know, I work with them, I commentate with them, and I analyze the field, and I said, you know what, I think there might be an opportunity here for me to both make some money and try my hand at accomplishing one last thing, you know, because the ships will sail completely past this age. I'm in my mid-40s. So I've lived pretty well. I've not abused my body. So I feel like it's still cooperating with me. I also was always a late bloomer. I lost my last tooth in high school. You know, I was, and puberty came late for me. So I feel like it also helps me that I'm aging late, right? But nonetheless, you're getting to that point. And so if you don't do it now, you're not going to do it. So when I got back into training, and I felt like, you know what, the rhythm is there. I'm able to change the way I train a little bit, because that was also an issue for me end of my boxing career. I was too emotionally attached to the way I trained when I won world championships, and I couldn't detach from that. And if you train that way in your later stages of your life, or later stages of your career, you're going to get injured. It's too intense. You can't train like a young guy when you're older. So I think the detachment of the retirement allowed me to detach from that emotional attachment I had to the way I trained before, because I could not remove myself from it at the end of my career.
Is it the working smarter? Sorry to cut you off. Is it the working smarter, not harder, old
Exactly.
adage?
Yes, it's exactly what it is. And I would not have been able to sleep at night thinking I've not done enough work today, you know, before. While now with the detached separation, it's almost like we broke up from that old way we used to train and the new way that we train smarter, not harder. I'm not training as hard. I'm still training hard enough. It's an enjoyable way I'm training. It's a different way I'm training, but also it's smarter because I have the experience to know what I need and what I don't know. I'm able to kind of sift out things a little bit better, filter things out I don't need a little bit better. And these fights are 5 or 6 rounds, so it also helps me out, you know. There's different challenges in BKB than there is in boxing, and vice versa. But I think, you know, I felt like sometimes when I was ringside for some of these fights, whether it's boxing or whether it's BKB, and I hear the crowd and I hear the emotion of the fights, and I'd sometimes tell myself, I miss this, you know. But then I just counterpunch myself by saying, nah, what these guys had to go through the last 2 months to get to this point, I'd rather not do that, you know. So I eliminated that point, you know. But I got here, I was losing motivation in life. I just needed something to, you know, push me. I needed to be more disciplined with myself in general. You know, I had always had a disciplined, regimented mentality when I was fighting. And so I was like, and the best way to do that is to fight again, to compete again, along with all the reasons I just gave. Plus, like I said, I mean, we live in tough economic times. It's always nice to have a little bit more money. You know, anybody who will tell you that we're not in tough economic times is lying to you or lying to themselves, or is supremely rich, which bless you if you are, you know. But, you know, I think that if I can stay ahead and float better with the assets, liabilities that I have, I've worked very hard to buy up and achieve what I have and what I own, and I'd like to do my best to try to keep it for both myself and my family.
Let me ask you, we had a talk off camera and I was alluding to the fact that your career, it wasn't a padded record. You fought the who's who, you know, first world title shots, Miguel Cotto. You then beat Asenchenko with a devastating performance. And for a guy who's not known as a puncher, you've had a history of bad hands. To come into this sport, and I was at your last fight, and I've seen injuries on the TV, and look, I've been doing this for 5.5 years, I've seen a lot of things. I don't think I've seen a cut like I saw in person at your last BKB fight. Was there any concerns after that you sat there and went, that could be it? Because look, I know you've commented on how slow things were to get treated, but these injuries, they do stay with you.
Yeah, you know, I felt like, listen, I've got a lot of scar tissue from the years of fighting, so I feel like it's going to open up easier, and in bare knuckle, things open up much easier than that, right? So I went in thinking I'd probably end up cut. I got to be honest with you. But you know why I didn't think the cut was the reason I should stop? Was because it was from a headbutt. The biggest cut came from a headbutt. You know, like I did get cut, but the biggest gash that looked like, oh my goodness, came from a headbutt. That could have come in boxing as well. So I didn't. Maybe I'm convincing myself, maybe I'm lying to myself, but I said, nah, I mean, that could have happened in boxing. That kind of clash of heads causing that kind of cut can happen in boxing too. I will say that the eye pokes, the result of the eye poke gave me some trepidation as far as, you know, what do I do? You know, do I continue this or do I not continue this? Because I came back not wanting to take advantage of my name and just jumping the line and getting a title fight. I wanted to earn my title fight by fighting a worthy opponent, a worthy adversary, somebody who both was a good fighter and also a name in the sport of BKB.
A respected fighter for this level.
Yeah, so I felt like I wanted to get the respect factor out of the way, and if I wasn't able to do that, then you know what, I wouldn't deserve to jump the line, right? So I didn't want to do that. So when I did that and I was able to get the win in a very tough fight, Tyler Gajan is a supremely very good bare knuckle fighter. I will say that I was like thinking to myself, maybe I shouldn't take advantage and get this title fight because I don't know like if it's worth it, you know. I don't. But you know, time passes and you heal. Yeah. And you suddenly, it's like you get off a really tough roller coaster ride, you know, and you're like, man, I would never do that again. And then when you're on it, but then you get off it and you're like, let's get back on line, you know. It's like it's that kind of rush. And then once I was healed, it was, you know, a fighter's mindset. It's like, man, yeah, we'll do it, you know.
You mentioned the fighter's mindset, and at this age, you know, you can tell it's still in you. The way you talk about boxing, how sort of you articulate the sport. Away from this as well, Pro Box TV, shout out to you guys. Yeah. You do an incredible job yourself, Chris Algieri. So you have things to do other than this. Yeah. So what would it mean to you to become a world champion in this? And I say that because you've done that in professional boxing. You've had some amazing highs, the lows. You've had the proper up and down career that you can look back and go, I can sleep at night. Do you know what I mean? What would this mean to you to become a champion? Yeah.
I think as far as accomplishments, the goal is to set the bar so high that you're never satisfied. It's a catch-22 because you're never satisfied, but if you can accomplish some of those things, you'll live a pretty good life. You know, I had set the bar so high when I started boxing. If I will tell you the boxes I've been able to check off, there's probably 3 times as many boxes I was not able to check off of things I wanted to accomplish. But in the process of striving to accomplish all those things, I've been able to live a pretty good life and accomplish a lot of things, you know? And that's sort of always the mindset. It's, you know, strive to accomplish more, have ambition, and push yourself to, you know, be a disciplined human being and be motivated, you know? And I know it's not everything. Honestly, as I get older, I know there are things that I value more than combat at this point, that I need to value more than combat, and I intend to, you know, get to when this part of my life that surely is almost, this chapter of my life that surely is almost closing comes. But I don't know, I'll tell you, it's a hard thing to just drop all at once. You know, it's a hard thing to just, you know, get rid of all at once. You find yourself sort of stuck in that limbo, like I want to chase it. I need this. And I'll tell you what, from the last fight, the mentality wasn't chase ambition. It was accomplish ambition, but the mentality was get in shape, become that person that you were before, that person when you walk into the room, people are like, oh, that's Malignaggi, that's Paulie. You know, it had stopped for a while. Be that person, and you're like, you come in with that confidence, that utter glare, you know? And when I took that approach, I started enjoying even my training. Because again, even the training, I started training smarter and harder. I used to hate all that part at the end of my career, you know? So it wasn't just the lights that now I was missing. When I started training, I was like, whoa, I actually missed this. I like this daily regiment, being regimented, being disciplined. It feels good. I feel really good as I was dropping the weight and getting myself sharp. And that's been, I think, the most key factor here is, you know what? Don't think about the result.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to win these fights.
Pressure's off.
Yeah, you're not supposed to win these fights. So don't think about the result. Don't think about, oh, this is of this most importance or utmost importance. All my life, all my career, I put this pressure on myself that got to accomplish this. I've got to do this. It's got to happen for me. And listen, I'm not going to tell you that maybe it wasn't the way to be, because obviously I was able to accomplish a lot putting that kind of pressure on my shoulders, putting that kind of weight on my shoulders. But I'll say, when nobody believes in you anyway anymore, there's no pressure to put that weight on your shoulders. It's like, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here, but you know what? I feel good being here, yeah. So let's see what it leads to. And so, you know, it's more so every day the plan is just execute the game plan. Every single day, get out of bed, execute the game plan for the day, execute the game plan for the day, regimented, disciplined. And on fight night, my mindset when I fought Good John wasn't to win or lose. It was just execute the game plan, you know? Let it play out. Be disciplined, execute the game plan the way you train for it every single day, the way you accomplish it, the way you approach it. And then if you do, the result handles itself. It should. And if it doesn't, and you still execute it, then you can still be proud of yourself, you know, because at this age, you're not supposed to win. So if it worked the first time, I don't change that mindset. And it's funny because when I was younger, I would have thought to myself, nah, that's a cop-out. If you don't think you have to win at all costs.
It's a mentality.
You're copping out, you're excusing yourself, and maybe you're accepting a defeat. And I would have thought to myself, maybe I can't think like that. Maybe I'm letting the subtle defeat enter my mind. But you don't know now. It's like, you can think that if you want. I know on fight night, I'm coming to execute my plan, and it's a difficult proposition to beat still, you know? And you can think that if you want, that, hey, you know, I'm okay with losing, and because I'm not putting that kind of pressure on myself. That's fine, but you care less about what everybody's saying at a certain point. Yeah. I think at 45 years old, I care less about that.
Let me ask you, you mentioned there some very key bits about, you know, walking into the room feeling like, you know, feeling yourself like, look, I'm Paulie Malignaggi kind of thing, and we see the difficulties of fighters. I want to show you a clip, and this is a clip that stayed with me from before I even did this media game, but I used to watch All Access all the time. You gave someone some very good advice, and I want to show it you. Remember this?
Yes, especially now.
Just say you still make a lot of money. Make sure you think about it. You're 26 years old. You still make a lot of money. Make sure you do the right thing with it, man. Okay? This shit ends one day, man. I'm telling you. Take it from me. This shit ends one day. All right, homie? And nobody is going to get
You had a conversation, a very raw conversation with Adrien Broner, who at this point you've shared the ring with, and he's
And
fighting.
he was at the center of attention at that moment.
And he was coming back.
And he was fighting
Akhmadiev
at that time, and it was a great win for him that he wound up getting the next night after we had that chat.
When you look back now at that chat, and we see obviously fighters, I'm using Adrien as an example. This isn't to criticise anyone. It's important to show the pitfalls, I think, as well as the highs, because you know yourself, the highest highs in boxing, the lowest lows.
It was at that point that I was starting to realize that nobody cares when it's over. You know, it's funny. Bronx Tale is one of my favorite movies, right? And that's Sonny tells C, nobody cares. Like, and at the end of it, C realizes it when he's at the funeral. You were right, Sonny. Nobody cares. You know, they just come up at the funeral, they have their own private conversations, they pay their respect, they leave, and that's it. It's over. Nobody cares. And so you can be the highest of high. You can be the center of attention. Nobody cares. I remember thinking this very early on, as I was a prospect coming up the ladder as a pro prospect, undefeated. I was becoming a hotter prospect. I didn't have crazy fame yet, but I was becoming a hotter prospect. And I was at a club show in New York, and I was talking to Junior Jones. Junior Jones obviously had a good championship career in boxing. He knocked out Marco Antonio Barrera, put up his first loss on his record, had some good wins. And I remember people coming up to me wanting pictures and autographs. And I'm talking to Junior Jones, and nobody's acknowledging him. Nobody knows it's Junior Jones. Granted, there's less internet at that time, but nobody even knows it's Junior Jones. At my mind, I started thinking, unbelievable. This was a champion that I used to spar when he was a champion, high level. I've watched him perform in the Garden, Madison Square Garden. I've watched him perform in big arenas as a champion, knock off major players. These people have no idea that this is Junior Jones. They're taking pictures with me. And I remember making a mental note to myself and saying, I've got to remember that, because one day this is going to happen. For surely it's going to happen to me. For sure it's going to happen to me one day. And I didn't think about it again, because at that point you're flying. You know, you're going up the ladder, and I would end up continuing my rise up the ladder. By the time I got to the Adrien Broner conversation, though, when I told him those things, I was getting to that point where it was the end of my boxing career. If not, I may have already been retired. It was around that point.
I think you just retired.
Yeah.
Maybe
so,
just. Yeah.
So I was no longer the center of attention whenever I walk into a room, or I was no longer the topic of discussion when I was around people. I was no longer very important, you know? And yeah, people will say, oh, it's egotistical way to think, but this is what feeds you when you're an athlete. This is what feeds you when you're a TV star, you know? So
these are
like a drug, but also what puts the motivation behind you, what pushes you to perform too, you know? These are things that push you. These are you pick up all kinds of little gasoline tidbits to push you, you know? You look at all of them, and they go. As you're losing that motivation and you're losing that part of your mindset, this also helps push it down more, because you're like, nobody cares anymore. It's like you're not important anymore. You're not the center of attention anymore. It's the next hot thing that's coming up the ladder, you know? So I was starting to see that, and my mind had already gone back to that Junior Jones situation, all this other stuff, and now I was getting to that point, and I said, you know, be humble about it, exit strategy, you have a job, you have TV, and, you know, let these guys be the stars. But I had several conversations with AB around those times. That was one that was caught on camera, but there had been one or two others. And
you just ring each other up and have these
no,
calls?
Just see each other, you know, see each other. He's called me maybe once or twice, but we'd basically just see one another at events and fights, especially at that time. I was working for Showtime. And I remember there was one or two other conversations, but basically just the conversations were the same thing. It basically, don't mess up what you got right now. You're in a position where you can really maximize everything. Do not mess this up. And honestly, you no longer have to be unlikable. I understand the unlikableness was the sell. And sometimes you need to be that way to push yourself further. But once you reach a certain status, try to balance it out. Even Ali did that perfectly. You know what I mean? Where Ali, you know, made himself very unlikable. But then there came a point in time where his fame was so high that he knew he could, you know, be lovable as well. And you have to balance that out. You have to know when it's time to make that proper switch, and that you've gotten the most out of the unlikableness, and you make the proper switch. You have to understand that. You have to have that mentality and that understanding to do that. And when it came to AB, I was trying to make him understand that you are at a point where people really know you. You are at the center point. You are the hottest thing right now in boxing. You no longer have to be unlikable, so start working on that other side. And I started telling him, sometimes there were moments where I would talk to kids about boxing, and I was doing some speaking engagements at the time. And I would like talk to them and like, who's your favorite fighter? And I told AB, you know what the biggest answer I get at that moment? Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner, that's you are there, bro. So you don't have to be so unlikable. You can start making that switch over right now, and it'll really, really help you. And I told you, because if you continue to make enemies, everybody's going to constantly root for your demise. And when it's over, you're going to be left with nothing, especially if you don't be smart with your money. If you're going to be left with nothing, and nobody's going to care. They will laugh at you. They will hate you. They will be happy that you did it, because envy and jealousy comes into play there. When you make yourself unlikable, it comes into play even more. And yeah, here we are, unfortunately, with AB. You know, we've seen all that. But when it came to me, that's why I tried to, get my exit strategy in a way where it was a little bit more tamed at the time. Doesn't always work out that way. I had the McGregor problem, then I had the Showtime problem, and it is what it is, you know. But I didn't actively go searching for these problems, unfortunately. Sometimes they come searching for me. But that was basically my advice at the time, and I still believe it. I still believe it that it's, when it's over, it's over. Right now I'm enjoying this little tidbit of reincarnation, but when it's going to be over, it's over.
But you've always managed to scratch that itch in boxing, because if you're not in the ring, like I mentioned before, you articulate the fight game really well. So you have these TV opportunities where you can get maybe close to the action without getting in the ring, and nothing will replace that buzz. But you still get to be, I suppose, in a way, involved. Is that correct?
Yeah. You get the best ringside seat when you're a commentator, right? So it's cool. It's a seat that people will pay thousands for at some of these fights. I've gotten to be ringside at some of the best fights of this era, right? So it's pretty cool. Sometimes, you get to do that. Sometimes you don't. But either way, I mean, at the end of the day, I just wanted to be true to myself, age a little bit gracefully, maybe not be as combative all the time with people, even though sometimes I want to be.
Is that hard?
Yeah, of course. Because I'm naturally combative when I don't agree with something. But, just try to, there's that saying, you catch more bees with honey than with vinegar or whatnot. But even
is that a saying?
Is that a saying? Yeah, there's a saying in America. But even in the Bible, actually, because I've become a more studious person of trying to get to know the godly side of things in life as I get older. But there's not something in the Bible that says, season your words with salt. Like basically, don't be so aggressive all the time. You can say something and not be so aggressive, and you'll get more out of it. It tastes better, because when something's salted, it tastes better.
Let me ask you something you've been vocal on. So I want to touch on it. The Muhammad Ali Act. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up with yourself, because I know you've spoke about it on a few occasions. I know Eddie Hearn's referenced it as well, saying, obviously I thought Oscar and Nico Ali Walsh, I thought they spoke very well. I think Eddie alluded to the fact that this is already a done deal. There's nothing, this is already going through. Is that how, from the outside looking in, you see it, knowing what you know about the lobbying process, etc.?
Well, there's lobbies, and I've said this the other day on the Ariel Helwani show. There's lobbyists who push these senators. Politicians are the most spineless, most garbage human beings that can exist. For you to be in that world, knowing that nothing's going to change, and you can pretend you wanted to get in that world to help people. Nothing helps people in that world, because the political machine is too strong that for one individual to go in there and change things. So when you're going in there and all you're looking for is lobby money, that's really all they're looking for, is to pad their own bank accounts, And so when you see that lobby money will change everything, from not just the Ali Act, from poison being injected into foods to GMO food to everything. Just crazy things that you see that lobby money produces from these absolutely spineless, despicable creatures that we call politicians. That didn't shock me that the Ali Act was is on the way to being changed over to what the Zuffa people wanted it, because no matter what Oscar and Nico would have said, and I was asked to go on that, I would have actually gone. It had I not been in training camp, because it was coming to the close of my training camp. But either way, like Eddie said, it's a done deal, because these politicians have already made up their mind. They've been lobbied, right? And so the funny thing about a lobby is, depending on who's giving the lobby, it's called a lobby. If the wrong person is giving the lobby, it's called a bribe. But if a politically connected person is giving the lobby, it's called a lobby, right? So it's funny how you can call the same thing can be a crime, but at the same time, it can also be a lobby, you know? So, I mean, when you see the hypocrisy behind all this stuff, it's like, you know, you think boxing that already had its own problems is going to be helped by these people? No, it was never going to be helped by these people. And unfortunately, you know, corporate greed, it takes over, and it does. Like I said, it takes over in situations even more important than this. I mean, you talk about the humanity's food supply for the whole world is getting poisoned more and more every day. It's more and more difficult to get real food anymore because of this. So you think something as minimal as boxing contracts wasn't going to get overturned by a lobby? No, of course not.
Do you think the Zuffa movement lasts? Do you think it has a foothold?
Do I think the Zuffa movement lasts? I mean, I think it'll.
There's one guy at the top of everything. Like Turki Al-Sheikh's got interest in everything.
Yeah.
But he's brought the Zuffa thing to
I mean, he's a
fruition
face.
as well, so.
The thing with Zuffa is they've also got guys like Ari Emanuel and you know, Nick Khan and all those guys. You know, they're big pieces in the William Morris endeavor and WME, which is a major conglomerate in the United States, talent agency and whatnot. You know, it's not just Turki Al-Sheikh. You know, and it's funny because even something like that is a very interesting things when you look really between the lines.
We've been told that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua is done. We've got Anthony Joshua in a warm-up fight, which I think he deserves after everything he's been through. Just see where he's at mentally, more than anything. Is this a fight now that you're looking forward to? Are you in the camp of, I still want to see this fight? Is it past its sell-by date? What does that fight do for you? Because over here, you know yourself.
I mean, it's not what it was before, but I'd watch it. You know, I mean, listen, would it be the first fight we've had that is past its due sell-by date? No. I mean, think about it. Mayweather-Pacquiao was past his sell-by date. It still sold a lot. Unfortunately, fans get gripped by the drama. And sometimes when you make these fights past their sell-by date, they actually sell more because they've been talked about so much, even though the result is disappointing. You know, you make it by the right date, you probably won't sell it as much, but it'll be a dramatic, spectacular fight. You make it past the date, the crazy thing is they constantly sell it a lot. They sell it a ton. Even Crawford Canelo sold a ton. It was a waste of time. You know, Mayweather Pacquiao, waste of time. Spence Crawford, waste of time. But these things sell because people have been hearing about them so much. I'm not going to tell you Joshua and Fury is a waste of time because I think at this point in time, enough intelligent people know, listen, this is not a heavyweight championship on the line. But they had their run. It was a good run. You would have loved to see it in their prime. But at this point, it'll just wet the whistle a little bit. You know, it'll whet your appetite a little bit. And it'll still be something fun to watch for the fight boxing fans.
Who at this point do you give any sort of lineage or advantage to? And is your opinion different now than it was 5 years ago?
I know it would have been hard for me to pick against Fury 5 years ago. I couldn't even see Usyk beating him, to tell you the truth. Now I don't know, you know, but I don't have enough of a gauge on either of these guys. They've been inactive pretty much. And, you know, I don't get much out of the Jake Paul fight with AJ. And I don't get a lot out of the Makhmudov fight with Fury, to tell the truth. So you know, I don't know who I'd pick. When guys are coming off of these long of a layoff, it's very tough, you know. It's like when you ask me Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence. I mean, Spence fights once every leap year. How do I know what he's got left? You know what I mean? So, you know, we'll see in the ring, and we'll see when Fury and AJ get in the ring. But I assure you it'll be a popular fight. Both of these guys, they sell stadiums a lot. Fury has sold, I think, constantly in stadiums. You know, AJ, I've worked several stadium fights of his. So these are mega stars in boxing, regardless of the championships or not. It's not, I don't think, maybe the winner gets a championship fight, I don't know, but I don't think either of them will see the heavyweight championship of the world ever again. But their legacy in the sport, I think, probably brings a lot of interest to the matchup.
Absolutely. Well, look, your fight next week, it's important, just before we leave this off, yourself, BKB, you've partnered with the Ricky Hatton Foundation. It's important to say, I think we spoke in an interview before about your relationship with Ricky, but some of the proceeds from the ticketing, I believe, will go towards the foundation, which is helping support mental health. A classy touch from yourself and BKB? Yeah,
I think obviously the loss of Ricky was very traumatic for the sport of boxing, but especially English boxing and especially Manchester boxing, where we're going to have this fight, you know. Ricky was always someone very loved because you felt like he was one of the regular people, you know. Even though he was a championship level and elite guy, he was one of the fellas, and he always made you feel that way. Ricky's one of the guys in boxing that I've met that I could be cool with and be friends with, even if we never boxed together. You know, even if boxing had never been in my life, like and boxing had never been in his life. If we ever met in a different reality where boxing was neither of a piece of our lives, I think we still could have been friends. You know, and because he had that kind of allure to him. You know, but just like he had that kind of allure because he was one of the guys and one of the regular people, he had these regular emotions like regular people too, which are, sometimes these insecurities and these depressive spells and whatnot that all of us, especially in this day and age, are combating a lot because of, so much stress from the world. And, the relatability really hit home when, he passed away, because it was like, wow, even somebody like Rick, he was one of our own. No matter how big he got, he was still like us. He still suffered these things, and so I think that it hits home more than anything to really, pay attention to such things. Sometimes I think the mental health thing is overdone because there's a difference between being mentally unhealthy and being depressed and also just being an unhappy person.
Yep.
And I think too many people that are unhappy take away some of the help from the really depressed people. And that's unfortunate. I think you have to have the maturity to understand, are you just a miserable, spoiled person, or are you depressed? There's a difference, because depressed people are the ones that need the help. Miserable, spoiled people, you get them a kick in the ass and, go get a job or something like that. But it's hard to see, it's hard to diagnose, and that's the problem. That's why you need people's honesty from the heart to be there, because, you don't want to get the reality when this happens, because then this happens and you're like, oh my goodness, could it have been different, So you need to really pay attention to these things, and I think the Hatton Foundation is doing a good job with that, and I'm happy to pair with them and BKB for this fight to help that cause, just bring some light to it.
100%. Well, look, it's a classic touch. I appreciate you being the first ever person on this new channel for myself. Growing up watching you fight, it's a bit of a full circle moment, and got a bit of a gift for you. So one of our sponsors at Zappler, I see Johnny Nelson in the background. He knows all about this stuff. Your all-in-one supplement for men, helps with your rest recovery.
Oh, nice. Nice.
You're going into a bare knuckle fight, so it may come in handy. All natural ingredients.
Awesome. I love it.
That's from
Thank
them
you.
and us to you. So
Zappler, thank you, man. For sure, man. I really look forward to taking this, man. For sure.
no problem. Thank you very much.
you.
Appreciate it. This episode is brought to you by Our Kings Competitions. Shout out to Mark Weir. They're giving away unbelievable prices for very cheap. Next week, the day after Paulie Malignaggi's fight, they've got an offer, 89p a ticket, chance to win £100,000 or a sports car. So I'm going to ask the Magic Man right now. I'm going to show him the car. This will come up on the screen. That's the choice. You get a BMW M5 G90, or you can have a cash alternative of £100,000. What are you doing? What would you do?
I've already had the M's, so yeah.
That's all right.
I had an M. I will take the 100,000
instead of the car.
Yeah, because I'll tell you why. I love the car, but I could probably talk my dealer into giving me a better deal and keep some of the 100,000 for myself.
Well, look, Our Kings Competitions, they're the best around. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you click on the links. It'll be in the YouTube description. It'll be attached to all our socials.